Hey guys, welcome to Nights of Halloween. Holy cow, what a bloody week it's been for us here at the show. Oh my gosh, Rockinboxes presents. It's been crazy, guys. Let me tell you, this week's has just, like I said, it's been crazy. Oh, hey, I see. Tom McLoughlin is here with us, guys. Please, he's on the phone. We had some, oh man, this Google Hangout thing, we'll get her figured out eventually. But please welcome to Rockinboxes presents Nights of Halloween. How you doing, Tom McLoughlin? How you doing, brother?
Wait for the crowd to calm down here. I'm fine. Yeah, I guess the problem is, the bad vibes that is Hollywood that I live in the middle of here. So I don't know, we had this going a few days ago where we could see each other. It's technology, what do you say?
Yeah, definitely technology at its best. Let me tell you, it's oh well. Hey, you know what? Eventually, whenever we meet you, we'll have a great sit down, and it'll be spectacular. And we should go on over to Google. We should send Jason over to Google and say, hey, what the hell's going on with you guys? What do you think?
But it's all his tools, all his knives, all his weapons.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Have a nice sit down with those guys.
Oh, exactly. Oh, brother. Well, thank you very much for being on the show. And there's a lot of people out there that, they were excited to, say, oh my gosh, I can't believe that he's going to be on Rockinboxes Presents. And, we got wind going on in the background here. Smoke machine, all kinds of stuff, fog. So, you know what? Let's take it back a little bit to the rock and roll there, Tom. Let's talk about the Sloths. And let's go back to 1964? Holy cow!
The band started to put. That was before I got involved with them. Together, bunch of guys, believe it or not, Beverly Hills High, and formed this group that kind of started like as a surf group initially, and then kind of got into more rhythm and blues. And all of us were so influenced by the Stones and the Yardbirds and the Animals, and of course the Beatles were the ones who kicked it off. Rebellious British groups started to make the scene, and we realized, I don't know if it was planned by all of us, but it seemed like these other groups were even more upsetting to our parents than the Beatles were, and so we kind of went that direction. I got involved with these guys, and by this point, the group that kind of started to disband was now called the McLouglins, and that was 65, 66 that they were involved with that, and it was an amazing time to be on the Sunset Strip and be 15, 16 years old and be opening for the Doors before they really, took off. Love the Animals when they came to town, Pink Floyd, the Seeds. I mean, it was just incredible. And of course, it wasn't really a whole lot of interest in a bunch of kids, that young, in terms of getting record deals or whatever. So we kind of meandered through the 60s playing with different bands and stuff until everything kind of fell apart and things started to get ugly around here when Manson did his stuff in 69, and then of course Altamont, and we were losing a lot of rock legends in and around that time, Janis and Jimi Hendrix and Jim Morrison, and I for one just said, I think I need to cool it for a bit, and in the meantime I'm going to see if I can be a much more interesting lead singer in the front man, and try to do something that Jagger and Roger Daltrey of the Who and James Brown and all these other guys that I looked up to as great showmen, something more physical I could do. And somehow I gravitated towards the wonderful world of pantomime or mime. Met Marcel, got as much money together as I could, and went to Paris in 1970 and did the Starving Artist in Paris. But there I kind of learned a new craft, and it was something, as I said, I kind of I kind of left my rock and roll passion back there in 69, 70. And, pursued this, which led into eventually, writing and then directing and doing films. But then the bizarre thing is that the Sloths had recorded a song called Making Love that nobody would play because of the title. In those days, that was definitely something you couldn't put on AM. And we learned like 5 years ago that the song, if you had an original 45 of that song, it was selling on eBay for $6,650. And suddenly we were like sought out, who are these guys? Where, are they still alive? And, we want to interview them. And because it just, the song was kind of an underground cult classic in its own way, particularly in Europe. And so, we got back together again, literally in the garage. I had not sung in 40-something years. Guitars hadn't played in that long. And of course, we were pretty bad, trying to get, find our footing again. And we eventually got brave enough to go out and do a show. And much to our shock, we got an incredible response. And so over the last 5 years, we are like a new up-and-coming rock and roll band. Of course, everybody's in their 60s. What the hell?
But Tom, you sound great. Sorry to interrupt. You sound great. 60 or not.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm sorry.
I have a wonderful vocal coach, Wendy McKenzie, who is somebody who, I knew when the band first was around. We were friends. She'd come to shows and stuff. Now, she's my vocal coach, really helping me make the transition, back into singing and being able to, do other things vocally, rather than just my screamy approach to rock and roll. So it's been great. And she's worked with some of the best people, in the industry. So it's been a great help having her aboard. And then the act now is a combination of, visual humor, magic, and I've kind of pulled all the stuff that I was involved with over the years, into the show.
Sure.
And then the music is, very much that hardcore rock and roll from that era, the mid-60s.
Yeah, what an amazing story. I mean, you guys opened for the Doors and Pink Floyd and the Animals. Wow.
Well, even more bizarre, we were in a battle of the bands with the Doors. They won, of course, but it was just weird to think, it's like, who are these guys? Jeez, well, they're good. But it's like they hadn't even got to that point yet where they were just, the headliners. They were just part of a battle of the bands. But once they took off and that album came out, then it was like, it just went. And because they were original, and Jim was an amazing lyricist and a very, classic rock and roller in all the best ways. And, I got to know him tiny bit backstage, but he was kind of an enigma, and it was definitely sad that we lost him so early.
Yeah,
and it was Jimmy and all the people that we lost in that era.
Yeah, it's amazing. That was a great answer, because I was going to ask you if you knew Jim a little bit. Growing up in the 70s myself, these were influenced, Led Zeppelin and the Doors and all that, the Monkees. I'm from Belfast, and, we got the British invasion as well. All the great groups from there. But then when I came to Canada, it was amazing, to get the North American side of things and all the bands that were coming out at that time. But that's awesome story. So right now you guys have an album, is that correct? The Sloths.
Yeah. It's funny because, I'm so linked with horror and now in the rock and roll, and it just so happens that, the album is called, The Sloths Back from the Grave.
Right.
And the cover, is designed to have sort of a bunch of the iconic things from certainly my movie past. There's the One Dark Night mausoleum that's kind of in the background. You see Jason's mask hanging from a tombstone. There's kind of a van sort of hearse in the background, you know, for the band equipment and things. And then all of us are kind of like, you know, these nasty zombie type sloths coming up out of the grave with a lightning bolt hitting the tombstone that says the Sloths, which is, you know, exactly like how I brought Jason back from the grave, you know, with the lightning bolt. So there's a lot of little nods to, you know, the horror past and hopefully future. So I continue to keep, you know, writing things you know, to direct again in the horror world. But the band has really kind of, you know, fallen into that, you know, where people who love rock and roll, you know, also seem to love the horror movies. And, you know, so we really have that wonderful crossover, you know, with those two different audiences.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, there's a lot of guys out there that are doing the rock and roll scene. I mean, Ari Lehman with his first Jason band, and, you know, it's great. You know, it's good that you guys keep the link between horror and rock and roll. Alice Cooper, you know, when he did, you know, the songs for Friday 6. I mean, I want to delve into Friday, by the way. We're going to get into that, but I just wanted to go back a little bit and talk about the Van Dyke and Company show that you were on in '76. What was that like? I used to follow all those programs, you know, Carol Burnett and the Dick Van Dyke Show and everything. So, yeah, how was that?
Yeah, and you guys had a show up there too. Was it John Demmer? John? What's his name?
Yeah.
Canadian comedian had his own show.
Oh.
John Bremer?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, the producers of the Van Dyke Show went on to work with him, and then they ended up buying, you know, a bunch of the skits that I had written for, you know, Dick Van Dyke when Mike Lucy was on, or Carol Burnett. You know, I got a chance to work with all these legendary comedians, and Dick Van Dyke, I mean, you always expect this guy to walk on water. I mean, he's such an amazing human being, and I just saw him a few months ago, and he's still got the same energy. He's 91, and, you know, he still gets up there and dances and sings, and it's just incredible. But yeah, working on that show, there were a couple of things that were amazing. For one, I had a group called the LA Mime Company, and we got to be regulars on the show and kind of part of the company. And then Andy Kaufman kind of made his big debut there. Right. So one of the girls in our group ended up dating Andy. So there were some great stories about what it was like to go out on a date with Andy, because he would always show up as a different character, and he'd stay in the character. And you know, and just being around him, and I remember we were standing in the parking lot of NBC at one point, and he walked over and he starts talking to us, and then he starts telling us about this idea he had about creating like the most obnoxious nightclub singer you've ever seen, you know, who would just be insulting and awful. In fact, he'd be so bad they'd have to put him in like a glass cage so the audience wouldn't kill him. And that was his Tony Clifton character that he eventually created. And he just used that character to act out as badly as he could on Taxi or any of the shows he was a part of. And it, you know, and he always denied that was him. It was always, you know, Tony Clifton had his own Social Security number and everything. I mean, Andy took it to the limit. So, you know, it was an incredible time to be, you know, on a variety show. At the same time, it was the end of the variety shows. Carol Burnett was about to go out. All the other, you know, that sort of formula was going away. At the same time, Saturday Night Live, you know, began. And I was up for an Emmy nomination for writing on that show. And we lost to Saturday Night Live, of course, because, you know, it was just breaking out in 1976.
Yeah.
So, you know, and Chevy Chase ended up guesting on the show, you know, which was, you know, like, wow, Chevy's going to be on this thing. Those guys just kind of came from, it seemed complete obscurity, and, you know, that became huge heroes of comedy.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, wow. So you mentioned that you were, you know, a mime, so you guys were frequent on the show, and you worked with Marcel Marceau. You know, for you being a musician and a mime and all these wonderful things that you were doing, I mean, Did you have any, was it because you did something so that way in case something didn't pan out, you had something to fall back on? Was this one of the, you know, a way of thinking for you, or?
Well, no, if we go all the way back to the beginning, you know, I was born in Santa Monica.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I grew up in a small little house in Culver City, literally right next to the MGM studios. And in the 50s, you know, the MGM studios still had all the big backlots. And my dad went to USC Film School. He wanted to be a filmmaker. And when he came out in 1949, no one would hire some kid out of a film school. Nobody believed that, you know, there would be any reason to hire anybody that learned like in a schooled way, as opposed to, you know, having a brother or uncle or somebody in the business that gets you in and you kind of learn on the job. So he kind of had his dream crushed, but it was sort of passed over to me. So when I was about 7, I started to, you know, climb over the fence of MGM on the weekends, and me and my friends would start shooting movies on our little 8mm cameras. So that was sort of the first thing that I wanted to really do, you know, in the future. I wanted to, you know, make films.
Yeah.
At the same time, my dad was a vaudevillian, going into film school, a magician and a fire eater. So I picked up this sort of, you know, association with both magic and would do magic shows as a kid to make money to pay for the films.
Yeah.
So it was and then also he had these old, you know, Charlie Chaplin films that he would project at 60mm prints, and I grew up watching Chaplin. So, you know, there was that, all these things kind of came together, the movies, you know, the mime, the magic, and then once the Beatles hit, and Elvis, the Beatles, Rolling Stones, as I said earlier, then I dropped all that. I was like, this is it, rock and roll. This is going to be, you know, my future's. And then as a result of that decision and growing my hair out, I got kicked out of 7 high schools. My parents wanted to disown me. It was tough. But at the same time, you know, girls would scream. I mean, you know, in those days, if you were a band that had, you know, long hair and played in any of these clubs, you know, you got treated like you were, you know, rock and roll stars. So it was, you know, it was just like a no-brainer. There's no way I'm going to cut my hair and have a problem with it in school. Too bad. And you know, then as I said, the mind, you know, interest kicked up again, which really, you know, kind of was a throwback to the Chaplin thing. And then started to study Buster Keaton and a lot of the great silent movie stars. And that was the direction that I was going with my career when Dick Van Dyke, you know, came into our lives and got us involved with that. And then since I started writing and had to join the Writers Guild, then I started saying, well, I'm going to write comedy scripts, but no one's buying comedy. They were buying horror. So I had an experience in Paris going down into the catacombs and walking around with a candle, as you used to do in those days. And I broke away from the group to see what it was like just to walk around with all these skulls and bones. And it was the first time I ever got a real supernatural fear, you know, because there was really, I mean, there's nobody running after me with a knife or anything that's going to hurt me. But psychologically, looking at all these people from, you know, hundreds of years of cemeteries that were dug up and all the bones put down in the catacombs, it just really got my imagination fired up. And, you know, literally had the hair on the back of my neck, you know, stand up. And that impression is what kind of led to the creation of One Dark Night. You know, but I set it in a mausoleum and it kind of kept all the corpses, you know, behind the marble walls. But then, of course, at the end of the movie, they burst out, and I wanted to do something different than George Romero had done, which I think is such a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Night of the Living Dead. And so I thought, you know, if I get a guy in, like, you know, this Waymar character that we've created could levitate and move these things in a way that they're not alive, they're still dead. You know, like he's floating these things down the halls, you know, to chase the girls and things. So it's kind of a fun house, you know, approach to the whole thing.
Right.
It's amazing how the movie has got quite a following. It's something that wasn't big at the time.
Yeah.
But over the years of VHS and obviously DVD, and now it just came out on Blu-ray. It's finding another audience.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's what this platform is all about, getting you guys out here and promoting what you guys have. And I know we were diving a little bit into your past. We are going to go into the future, but quickly, I also, you are, you had all those amazing things, you're a mime, you're a writer, you're a musician and everything like that, but you also have a passion for the paranormal. And my question to you is, what is the draw? Do you love the investigations? Do you watch shows? Do you, do you do it yourself?
Well, it's interesting. I remember when Spielberg did Close Encounters, and they said, well, do you believe, you've seen aliens, you believe in all that? And he goes, I haven't, but I really want to. And there's so many people I talk to with this. It just really fascinates me and things. And that was a very good and sane answer. I, on the other hand, have had a number of things that that most people would say, yes, there are ghost encounters, there's some sort of spiritual force. A couple times it was negative, other times it was not. It was something that just fascinated me, and I wanted to try to see if I could evoke it again. And it began a real study. My son and I used to go out on, ghost hunts. We would hear about a number of these places that were supposed to be haunted, and, we'd make a, road trip out of it and, sleep in these places and try to see if we could somehow, that kind of thing. Of course, it never happened when you tried for it, but every so often, I would be in some place, in a place in New Orleans when I was shooting the movie down there, and there was a definite, thing that happened in the briefest form, literally at 4 o'clock every night, there would be this pounding sound. And at first I thought it was pounding on the front door. I'd go downstairs, no one there. And then it was pounding upstairs. I'd go back upstairs again, and then I could hear, heavy footsteps like walking around. And I kept thinking, this is not happening. I'm dreaming this now. But the next morning, I went, I think that really happened. And then I went out on the porch and I realized, no, it's all cement. Now, I wouldn't have heard like heavy footsteps on that. But when I did a little more research, it's like, no, all that stuff was wood at one time. And this house that I was in, a ghost tour, was one of the things that was talked about, and this is where a lot of strange things had happened.
Yeah.
And I wasn't necessarily looking for it. It just sort of happened. And it was kind of a consistent thing that I could kind of count on, at 4 o'clock in the morning, there would be the sound, and if I tried to chase it, I'd never see anything. I just kind of accepted it. And there's been a number of little things like that that have occurred in my life. And if you go on YouTube, there's actually a thing where I actually tell one of these stories the very first time this happened. Mm-hmm. I had a girlfriend who had this ability to kind of draw some sort. And all these years that I've been involved with it, I stopped calling them ghosts. I really look at it as a form of energy that we don't quite know how to science, where, because science, you've got to do something like 3 times and it always works. And positive and negative energy, you have to somehow get somebody who's got one side of that and another, somebody with the other side of that for this to happen. Or some people are just very sensitive to that and they pick up stuff, and other people, it's like, I don't see nothing, I don't feel nothing, you're full of crap. You can't convince them otherwise. But my goal was, I did not want to, be in the third act of my life. So after there was a party for me at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, where I shot one dark night and wrote Friday the 13th, and they threw this party for me. And the next day when I went back to kind of thank the people that helped make that happen, I learned that there was a crypt that had not, I thought all the crypts were taken in this mausoleum, because I mean, Rudolph Valentino and Peter Lorre and, you know, all these people, you know, were in there, and it looked like every you know, tomb was taken. But he said, no, there actually is one that we found out that, you know, there's no names, anything attached to it. So suddenly this whole idea, you know, happened in my head. I said, okay, I'm going to start making payments. I don't care how long it's going to take, but, you know, I want that, and I want that to be the third act of my life. And I want to continue to go there, keep putting very high energy in there. And I talk about this on a couple of things that are on YouTube. One in particular was actually on the supplemental stuff from Friday. I guess it was Camp Crystal Lake Memories.
Yeah.
But it's on YouTube now under Legends. Legends Never Die from Hollywood Forever. And I kind of explained this whole thing of how I feel these things can be used almost like a modem. And it depends on your belief that you come in there with. And I firmly believe that I can actually be part of something after I'm gone. And it's like, I'm not going to know about it. And everybody says, why do you care? I said, right now it's to me very exciting to say that it's not over. Even when the coffin lid closes and I'm put in there, I still want the show to go on.
Yeah.
So if I can pull this off, you know, it's trying to do something that Houdini tried to do. The difference is Houdini didn't plan it for one specific place. And I somehow am crazy enough to believe that, you know, people who go to places that, you know, things have happened, they do somehow remanifest it for certain people. And I think, because I don't want it to be a horrible experience, I want it to be somehow, you know, a positive one.
Absolutely.
Every year on my birthday, we gather a group in front of that crypt, and I call it my crypt warning. And we just talk about life. We talk about things we want next. There's nothing about the fact that we're in a mausoleum and there stands the, you know, the place where I'm going to be interred one day. I just want to fill it with very, you know, positive thoughts and life-affirming things and stuff. And everybody, you know, who comes, you know, it's like, well, this is weird, but it's kind of cool.
Right on.
That's kind of that bizarre third act that I have planned for myself.
That you know, and that's a good segue into my next question quickly. Just, you know, you have this sense of humor that is just either dry or it's either a dark side or you know, it's and you're very funny too when you do it. I mean, do you does it hinder the career of people? Like, has it hindered your career at all, or have anybody ever been able to take you the right way, or, you know, have they taken you the wrong way? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, but I mean that's sort of the thing that you kind of hope for, because you know, if you get there, like, you know, when we were scouting for Friday the 13th, and we were going into some pretty rural down south, you know, places, and you know, and I was looking for a very specific kind of a look for where Jason was going to be buried and stuff. And so I'd go to some of these cemeteries and everything like immaculate, but there'd be the areas like that were sort of overgrown and things, and I'd say, you know, no, I want to shoot over there. I'd like that. It's like, oh no, you don't want to go over there. So, why? Well, that's a colored area there. I go, really? What color are they? Well, they'd be black. Yeah, that's it. And I go, that's exactly what I want. Let's go. And they just, I mean, it's like, you know, this kind of a reaction. And so many times, if I see somebody, to me, it just, I don't like where they're going with something, I will go into just, you know, harassing them, but in a way that they don't know whether I'm or serious about it. But at the same time, I mean, humor is part of what I tried to put into the Jason movie, and at the same time was, you know, scared shitless that the fans would go, oh, no, don't do that. You know, Jason is a serious thing. And even Brewster said, well, if you're going to do it, just don't make fun of Jason. I said, no, he stays the monster. And in fact, he's
exactly
more on, you know, you cannot defeat him now because we've brought him back in a way that, you know, he's got power, and you can shoot at him or
Yeah.
But I wanted all the campers to have a sense of humor. I wanted to show the audience right at the beginning with the James Bond little satire,
which was awesome.
So I mean, so that it's been very much a part of my life. And to me, humor, just like tears, are the things that you try to evoke from an audience. And especially in the days of the 80s, I don't think audiences today realize how much the audience was a participant in the actual films. Those films had incredible reactions in terms of the people talking to the screen and things. So I put a lot of jokes in there so that people would actually get the punchline. You make it very obvious, like the American Express card. There's always some guy in the back who say, "Don't we laugh about it?" Everybody would laugh, and he thought he was clever as hell. But that was exactly what I wanted to have happen. So there's been a number of times where it's like the humor kind of comes in as a way to get people to react. But now people, I went to go see it, which I thought had some great stuff in it. But the audience just sat there, and I thought, God, if they've gone that passive, or they've seen so much now that nothing really gets to them. And I think one of the more horrific things I've seen recently is Mother, because that thing just was so hard to take, and it was like hated, and it got like an F score from people. It's like, oh my God, I didn't want to do that. I thought, well, push buttons. It certainly did all the right things, and I bet it'll end up being a midnight cult kind of movie over the years to come. And it's like you're trying to find something that shakes up an audience again is hard. So we just recycle. I guess we've got Leatherface coming out this week, or no, it's Jigsaw.
Jigsaw. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, they're trying to get another Friday going, and they're having issues trying to get that off the ground. And Robert Englund isn't going to do Freddy, and so we need new monsters. We need something that people will go, yeah, I want to see him again. And Pennywise is the one that we have now. It's the beginning of that, kind of a new age of finding another Jason or Freddy or Pinhead or Michael Myers or whatever. So people love monsters.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They certainly do. That's awesome that you started with the Friday the 13th stuff, because I was going to ask you. Someone asked me, do you still have the tombstone from the movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And it's the heaviest thing in the world trying to move that thing around, because we found out it was cheaper to go to a place there in Covington, Georgia, and have an actual tombstone made than it would have been to have a styrofoam one made in Hollywood and shipped down to Georgia. So the art director said, "Yeah, well, I'm just give you a real one." And I, at the end of the show, I said, "What are you doing with the tombstone? Because you want it? I'll bring it out to you." And I go, "Yeah. And what about the coffin? You want that? Sure, you can have that too." So yeah, I've got Jason's coffin and Jason's tombstone still. And I got offers, so many times over the years of people wanting to buy it, but I really sort of have my heart set on trying to get it into a horror museum or someplace where all the fans can come and see it, as opposed to it sitting in my basement, which we used to drag out, the thing on Halloween and stuff. But, I want people who really love the movie to be able to see it and, maybe even be able to sit in and have a picture taken, because it is a very cool coffin, and the tombstone is pretty amazing looking.
It's funny, somebody just mentioned that you also had the coffin as well. I was just going to go quickly. We're going to move on quickly to, you had such an amazing cast, Tom Matthews, Jennifer Cook, of course, C.J.Graham, and many others that were in, Vinny Gustafera in the flick. And how many people did you actually, I just want to know, because, when you do the process of all the characters for a movie, how many people do you know that you would be able to recall, coming in for the parts, each individual part? Do you know the number at all?
The actual number of people we saw?
Not actual, but just around, just a round figure or whatever.
The one thing that Frank Mancuso Jr. really wanted to maintain was, the blonde final girl. He kind of, I guess, the two movies, the 4 and part 5 both had that.
Yeah.
I don't think 3 did. I think she was brunette. But anyway, that was the one thing he said, I just like, to have it be blonde, whoever's the girl that makes, through, because that was sort of I guess still is sort of, the thing, who's the girl who's going to stay there till the very end and be a final girl. And so we saw a number of people who came in, and Jennifer just leaped, head and shoulders over everybody else. I mean, her spunk, her sense of humor, and, her pretty flirtatious way was just perfect. John Shepard, who had done the previous Friday, there was kind of a, wavering whether that was going to happen or not happen. And then I guess John chose not to do it. And there's all kinds of stories, whether it was a religious decision or a money decision, or he just didn't want to do another one because it got such bad reviews, and so many of the fans just hated the fact that it wasn't Jason at the end. But, he decided not to do it. So I started, looking at other guys coming in. And again, Tom Matthews just, blew me away. And he had a little bit of a pedigree there with the Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
That he did. And Jennifer with V. So there was a little bit of an audience. They're not as strong as they are these days when you're part of a other show like that, where we have such a huge fan base now with shows. But the two of them just seemed like that would be a perfect mix. And then Darcy DeMoss actually, I think, was in and then didn't shoot her scene, or it was cut or something from the previous Friday film, part 5. So when she came in, she just, it was perfect for the Nikki character, as was Tom Fridley.
Right.
And but I think probably through the casting process, there probably was maybe 20 or so, actors that would come in for each role. Some I decided very quickly, others were more of a hunt, and finding Tom Fridley and seeing that look and things. And I didn't realize he was, John Travolta's nephew. I was stupid on my part, because you look at him and you go, yeah, of course, look at the resemblance. But all I got from him was he was just this high energy, wild kid that I thought is just, perfect. He would just, be wonderful to get scared, but at the same time, it was like he was going to, be a wonderful part of the humor in the movie as well.
Yeah.
And then my ex-wife Nancy, and what's his name? Just went out of my head.
Played character.
Yeah, from Ghost.
Tony Goldwyn.
Tony Goodwin.
Tony Good. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
But I mean, that was his first film. That's kind of how he got into SAG, was through that. And, it was just really, that was like a little set piece that I wrote, specifically for Nancy, and then I needed to find somebody to be, the other person in the Volkswagen. But that whole little sequence, to me, sort of encapsulates the whole movie. And, she had that great line too about, if you're enough horror movies to know anybody in the mask is never friendly. And that's been quoted so many times. And just the whole approach to the movie, years later, I had a script that they were looking for a director, and it was called Scary Movie. And I read it, and actually, they changed the name to Scream. But I read it, and I kind of went, I sort of did this movie already, satirizing the horror genre and stuff, so I passed. And then I continued to look for scripts and realized, well, nothing was as good as that. And when I went back to say, if it's still available, I was like, went to Wes Craven. So, that would have been obviously terrific to have been part of it, but at the same time, I worship the stuff that Wes has done over the years, and he's really, really smart and brilliant. I just watched the original Freddy again recently, and it's like, geez, Wes is great. But the irony is, years later, I met with Kevin Williamson, who was the writer of Spooky.
Right.
And he said, I got to admit something to you. Your Friday had a huge influence on the writing of of Scream. I go, are you kidding me? Oh my God. I turned that down. He goes, you did? I go, yeah. I saw those resemblances. And I thought, I can't go and, redo what I did in a different way, as good as your script was. Because at that time, Kevin was nobody had heard of.
Yeah.
And since that time, he's, been incredibly, done television and movies and so many things, so prolific. But yeah, it just, there's an irony in this business, that you turn down certain things, but later on you go, like CSI said, no, CBS is never do this kind of movie,
right,
or series. It's just too dark, and too like they changed the whole format. And once Survivor and those kinds of shows started up, no longer just Tiffany Network where everything was, Murder, She Wrote, and very, very family-oriented stuff.
Yeah.
And all this, television in general. Whoever thought we'd have a Walking Dead that would be #1 in the country?
Oh my gosh.
The Living Dead was something you could only see once in a while, when somebody was, brave enough to show it.
Now they have this Walking Dead. Yeah, absolutely. Tom, I know you have to go because you've got band and whatnot. Listen, do you mind giving us another 5 minutes? I'm just going to ask the quick questions that some of the people have asked here. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. So one person wants to know, his name's Tampa J. He's a really great guy. He's down there in Florida, and he asks, any significance with the kids in the Batman comic that was at Camp Porter Screen when the kids were sleeping in the bunk? The comic book was open to the Joker. Was there any significance or anything like that? Do you recall that scene?
Yeah, because it's funny, I get asked more about, no exit, because that always gets a huge laugh, the kids, reading that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the comic, no, I think that really was just one of those things where you kind of looked for pages that looked kind of interesting, and because, being a big comic book fan myself, it was, well, that looks cool.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there wasn't any, great significance there. It was really just something I liked. And the wonderful thing about Belmont and Frank is that they literally let me make the movie I wanted to make. And there was, I think the only suggestion that kind of, other than just to make fun of Jason with the humor, was later on when he came to me and said, what do you think about Alice Cooper doing the songs? And I went, are you kidding? Do that? It's like, yeah, he wants to write a new one. And I said, can we get some other ones off his album? Because I'd love to put, his music through here. Because I knew Alice when he was a infant, and we played together on the same bills, and he was in the group called the Nas.
Yeah.
And the Nas had to change their name because, I think it was a top run. I think you have the other Nas.
Okay.
So, yeah, and Frank Zappa, who we all hung out at his place at this cool log cabin place in Laurel Canyon. Yeah, I mean, Alice, hung out there, and as I said, I'm as Vincent, and very cool guy. And once he took off into that, that horror and doing the kind of show that he did, I was so jealous. It's like, shit, that's what I wanted to do back in rock and roll. Because I was blowing stuff up on stage and throwing myself into the audience and doing anything I could that just seemed outlandish and crazy. But he was doing it in like grand style, and that was great. So to actually, get a chance to have him contribute to Friday was a huge blessing, and that was one of the few things that kind of came in and was, from somebody else saying, "What do you think of this?"
Yeah.
But other than that, it really gave me a lot of freedom.
That's so awesome. That's wicked. So there you go, Tampa J and everybody else, you guys. Just Aaron, he's from Tennessee. He asks, he says, Tom, you've done so many fantastic TV movies. What are some of the big differences in directing for the TV versions compared to studio pictures or versus studio pictures?
Yeah. Well, you still have big bosses, the networks, just like the studios, they are trying to, well, with movies, obviously, it's like they want to make sure that it's low enough of a budget so they can pour a lot of money into advertising and distribution costs, and all that ends up costing 3 or 4 times more than the movies sell. I can't imagine what the budget was on it, because I mean, we saw that everywhere in every place for almost a year before it came out.
Yeah.
But so there is that thing that the network then also has to protect with censorship and things that they couldn't. You know, there's a lot of lines you can't cross. There's a lot of things that, you know, certain types of things that were still taboo. I managed to do a lot of really sort of what would be considered pretty distasteful subjects on Lifetime, of all places, and also USA, doing the DC Sniper 6 months after those guys were caught.
Right.
Murder in Greenwich, which was the whole, you know, Kennedy cousin scandal, the murder of, you know, Arthur Oxley. And at Lifetime, I mean, we were doing stories around oral sex, cyber, you know, bullying, internet, getting addicted to internet porn. I mean, some pretty, you know, things that networks certainly wouldn't do.
Yeah.
But even that, you know, we had to kind of water it down so that, you know, it wasn't going to be that, you know, turn the audience off that much. But, it, you know, I always sort of embraced that idea of, like, okay, well, here's a subject that I would have never kind of on my own would seek out as something I wanted to do. But if I took the job on, it's like, okay, I got to find some way that I can feel like I can contribute something to this and make it maybe a little bit different. And a lot of movie techniques that things I did in the films, I tried to bring, you know, into TV movies so that they wouldn't be just that kind of, you know, cookie, exact same thing, the same kind of wide shot and over the shoulder shots and close-ups and things. I really, you know, there's so many times I'd stop and think, okay, you know, how would a horror director do this, or how would Martin Scorsese do this, or how would Spielberg do this, you know, and you know, you're always stealing from the greats. And in fact, now that I'm teaching, there's a wonderful book that I discovered last year called Steal Like an Artist, and it really has all these amazing, it is okay if something that is, you know, the influences in you are crazy for that, because all the great, you know, poets, all the great composers, all the great painters, all the great, you know, sculptors, all these guys will always say, you know, they were students of somebody else. They studied these other people, and then they made it their own. And the same thing, you know, in films, you know, the people that were influenced. I mean, Brian De Palma's work is, we all at the time were going, he's just ripping off Hitchcock. Didn't matter to most of the audience, you know, Carrie and Obsession, and all those things that he did were fresh and new and exciting, but, you know, he was definitely, and he'd admit it. I basically tell this to the young film students. It's like, don't be afraid to say, yeah, I got that from Scorsese, or yeah, you know, that's a Spielberg shot. Yeah, isn't it cool? You know, as opposed to going, you know, to getting defensive. It's like, no, it's totally different. It's like, well, it's going to be different.
Right.
You're doing it. You're bringing it through your, whatever your story is.
Right.
So I always find myself going, you know, how would somebody who really knows the craft approach this, as opposed to how quickly can we shoot this to, you know, stay on schedule and, you know, keep the budget, which is what unfortunately a lot of TV movies do, and a lot of low budget stuff, you know, it's not a whole lot of invention or inspiration.
Right, absolutely. Just quickly, okay, so everybody's done with their questions. I'm going to say something. I need to shout out a few people. You were at the screening of Friday the 13th, Part 3, the documentary of Richard Brooker, and so Kevin R. Phipps, Sean Richards, Joey Quintanilla. He's oh my God, that guy is I love that guy. He's so amazing. And
he's great. All those guys, yeah. Joe is Joe is really wonderful.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And he's already, you know, I'm allowed to go out there anytime. He invited me to the red carpet. I would have met you there and everything, but anyway, that's a story for another day. So I just had to say, how quickly, if you could just quickly give us a synopsis. How was it? How was the movie? It was the documentary. Was it good?
It is, yeah. And yeah, people should see it. You definitely should check it out. These guys really put a lot of work into it. And you know, I remember hearing about it, you know, a few years ago, and you know, it's taken them a long time to, you know, get it. And I really respect somebody that has an idea and said, you know, I don't care how long long it's going to take. I'm going to do it. And these guys did it. And it's incredible. And it's, you know, it's hard with the Crystal Lake, you know, memories and some of the other things that Dan Fernand and
sure. Go ahead. Sorry.
You there? No,
yeah. No, I'm still here.
But, you know, these guys put together some incredible documentaries. So, I mean, you know, the bar is, you know, all the time gets higher and higher, you know, to, you know, how do you take all this footage and things and interviews and try to do something, you know, that can entertain, you know, an audience, and at the same time for fans, it's like, oh yeah, I love that. You know, you know, when it gets down to it, it's always for us geeks. I mean, I find myself watching these things all the time, going, yeah, and it's like they made it for me. You know, I was addicted to those Universal horror movies when I was a kid. You know, and saw them as many times as I could on TV. Memorize every line.
Oh yeah.
Now, all these, you know, the generations and since the 80s, it cracks me up with how many times these lines that I wrote are quoted and, you know, put on Facebook, you know, with different pictures from the film or something, you know, Trump, and then there's a line from Friday 6 under, you know, it's very amusing.
It is. You're absolutely right. And quickly, did you see the movie Never Hike Alone with Vincent DeSante's film? Did you see that on YouTube yet?
No, I have not.
Okay, that's a Friday the 13th movie. Sorry, yeah, that's a Friday the 13th movie as well. Never Hike Alone. Vincent DeSante, he was on the show here, and it's absolutely amazing. It's one hell of a project. It was great. Jason goes back to the lake, and you know what? I'm gonna save the end. You'll be really surprised at the end. You'll say, "Hey, how dare you, you bastards!" You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it.
Well, for all the fans out there that are into Friday the Game, you know, that was another thing that I went.
Yes, and
what they were putting together, that's incredible. And then I was very honored to be part of that and write that whole, you know, basically a radio show like you're listening to tonight.
Yeah.
So no visuals, all radio. But yeah, the whole, you know, Pamela Voorhees passed and Jason's father, and I wanted to put some twists in there. So, you know, if you think you know who Jason's father is, and things, I wanted to kind of throw a curve in there because it's actually something a little different, and it also kind of sets up what I was wanting to set up, but wasn't able to do in my Friday 6 with the ending, you know, having Jason's father. But I certainly understood why they did not want to go that way, because, you know, fans wanted Jason back, and they would not have been happy about the idea that, oh, is the series not going to be about his dad and not him? So I think it was a wise choice not to have, you know, shot that and had it in film.
Geez, you were reading my mind. I'm so glad you finished off the interview with that, because that was my last question. And so everybody out there, thank you very much for watching Rockinboxes Presents this evening on Nights of Halloween. One other person I want to thank, a huge shout out to Jerry Potter for his tireless efforts. You know, he's amazing. He's the one that puts all this together, guys. He's fantastic. And, you know, with me contacting everybody, you know, I want to thank you. And I want to thank you, Tom, for spending this time. I know you have to go. And guys out there, you guys, like I say at the end of my videos, be good to one another. Any words for anybody out there, Tom?
Just Jerry, I got to say, I mean, that thing you put together for me for this tonight, I was just blown away by, you know, it was so inventive and so clever. You know, my little contribution was nothing compared to what he put together. And I even told him, I said, you know, cut down on, you don't need to see me on the toilet. Just keep doing what you're doing there. You know, cut that down. But, you know, he found it funny. So, he left all that in. But it's like, I was really, really taken back by how much style he put into these things that he does for you guys.
Oh, yeah, no, he does some fantastic work. So I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. Hey, guys, don't forget tomorrow night we're going to have Jimmy Lee Combs here on the show, guys. And again, once again, thank you to Tom. And, you know, we wish you well. Hey, quickly, where can we find you? If you want to there's a new album, where can we find you quickly?
Well, I'd love people to go on www.thesloths.org. And that's, you know, sloths, like the cute little fuzzy creatures, SLOTHS. Also Facebook, under Tommy McLoughlin, you know, definitely can catch up with, you know, stuff on that. And then, you yeah, just check out YouTube. There's a lot of very cool things that have kind of come up over the years that ended up on YouTube that I was a part of. So I mean, you know, just, you know, for fun, you'll see there's, as you always pointed out, I have a kind of strange, you know, multi-personality career. So, but and then finally the book that Joe Madry did with me, you know, he came up with questions and insight, you know, that no one had before, and so the book has a lot of very cool things, and the, you know, the original treatment of what I based Friday the 15th on is in the back of that book, which I thought was brilliant on Joe's part to put that in there.
No, that's awesome. Thank you so much again, Tom. Guys, good night. We'll see you tomorrow here, 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 Pacific. And Jimmy Lee Combs, guys, everybody have a great night. And we'll see you on Sean Rockinboxes tomorrow at 12 o'clock rocks. And we'll thank Tom again for being on tomorrow as well. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you.